Have you ever felt completely drained after a conversation with someone close to you? Whether it's a family member, friend, coworker, or even a partner. Like all your energy has been sucked out in just a few minutes. Maybe you leave that interaction, feeling confused, your mind spinning, asking yourself, did I do something wrong? Why do I feel so bad? Is the problem me? If these questions are echoing in your mind, I want you to pause for a moment and take a deep breath, because you are not alone. And more importantly, you are not going crazy. This feeling of emotional exhaustion, of constantly doubting yourself, might be a sign that you're dealing with something deeper, something beyond a simple misunderstanding or a typical interaction. You might be experiencing the effects of a relationship with someone who exhibits narcissistic behaviors. I know talking about this can be uncomfortable, especially when it involves someone you love, someone who's been part of your life for years or even decades. Admitting that a person close to you might be causing you emotional pain is a delicate, sometimes painful process. But recognizing this possibility is the first, essential step toward reclaiming your inner peace, confidence, and above all, your self-esteem. Today, we're diving into an incredibly important topic that can transform how you view your relationships. How to identify if you're dealing with someone with narcissistic behavior. To do this, I'll draw on the teachings of one of the world's leading experts on the subject, Dr. Ramani Durvasula. She's a clinical psychologist with over 20 years of experience, an author of renowned books, and the creator of content that has helped thousands of people worldwide understand the impact of toxic relationships in their lives. Her work is grounded in years of clinical practice and research, and she has a unique ability to explain complex concepts in a clear, accessible way, enabling anyone to understand and apply this knowledge to their own life. If you've ever felt that emotional weight after interacting with someone, if you feel like you're always walking on eggshells, afraid of saying or doing something that might trigger a negative reaction, or if, for some reason, you've started questioning your own perception of reality, as if you can no longer trust what you see, feel, or think, this content is for you. Stay with me, because I'm going to share practical tools based on research and Dr. Ramani's expertise that will help you recognize these narcissistic behavior patterns. More than that, I'll show you how to start protecting yourself emotionally, setting healthy boundaries, and taking back control of your life. Let's explore the signs, dynamics, strategies that can make all the difference for your well-being. Before we dive into strategies for dealing with narcissistic behaviors, it's crucial to understand exactly what narcissism is and how it manifests. When we talk about narcissistic behavior, we're not referring to someone who simply enjoys taking selfies, has high self-esteem, or appreciates occasional compliments. Those traits alone don't define narcissism. Pathological narcissism, as described by experts, is far deeper, more complex, and, above all, harmful to those around people who exhibit these traits. A person with narcissistic behavior displays several core characteristics that go beyond an inflated ego. First, they have a constant, insatiable need for external admiration and validation. This pursuit of attention isn't just a fleeting desire, an emotional dependency that permeates all their interactions. Additionally, these individuals often show a genuine lack of empathy for others' feelings, needs, or perspectives. They might pretend to be empathetic at times, but this display is usually superficial, used as a tool to achieve their own goals. Another hallmark trait is their grandiose self-youth. They see themselves as superior, special, or unique, often devaluing others to reinforce this self-image. But here's the critical point. Something Dr. Ramani Durvasula, one of the foremost experts on narcissism, emphasizes in her work. People with narcissistic behavior need others to sustain their inflated self-image. They cannot maintain their sense of self-worth independently. It's as if their self-esteem is a balloon that constantly needs to be inflated by others' attention, validation, and energy. And that's where you, or anyone close to them, come into the picture. You become a source of emotional supply, someone they use to reinforce their self-image and meet their needs. Dr. Ramani often compares these individuals to emotional vampires. This metaphor is powerful because it illustrates how they drain the energy, confidence, and even sanity of those around them. They don't just seek validation, they extract it from you continuously, often in an exhausting way. In daily life, this behavior manifests through subtle but highly effective manipulation tactics that can leave you confused, insecure, and emotionally drained. One such tactic is gaslighting, a form of psychological manipulation that can be devastating. Have you ever been certain that something happened a certain way, but the other person insisted you were wrong? Maybe they said, "You're making things up that never happened," or "You're overreacting." Gaslighting is exactly that, a strategy that makes you question your own memory, perception, or even sanity. Over time, this can erode your confidence in yourself, making you doubt what's real and what I say. Another common tactic is triangulation, which occurs when the narcissistic person brings third parties into a conflict or relational dynamic. For example, they might say something like, "So-and-so would never react like that. They always understand me," or "Everyone agrees with me," or "The only one who doesn't see it." These statements are carefully chosen to make you feel insecure, jealous, or isolated, as if you're the problem compared to others who are supposedly better or more understanding. Additionally, a hallmark trait is constant blame. People with narcissistic behavior rarely take responsibility for their mistakes or actions. If something goes wrong, whether in a relationship, at work, or in any other context, they have an impressive ability to turn the situation around and make you feel at fault. They might say things like, "If you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have reacted that way," or "You forced me to act like this." This blame shifting is so effective that over time you might start believing you're truly responsible for all the problems, even when the situation was clearly caused by them. If you're going through this, I want you to pause and internalize something crucial. The fault is not yours. You're not causing this behavior, you're not being too sensitive, and you're not overreacting. What you're experiencing is a carefully orchestrated manipulation dynamic designed to maintain emotional control over you. These tactics aren't accidental, they work because they make you doubt yourself, often keeping you trapped in a cycle of confusion and self-questioning. Understanding these dynamics is the first step to recognizing that you're being manipulated, starting to protect yourself. Now that we've covered what characterizes narcissistic behavior, let's dive into specific signs that can help you identify if you're dealing with someone with these traits. Some of these signs are obvious, while others can be extremely subtle, especially early in a relationship, whether romantic, familial, professional, or platonic. Pay close attention because recognizing these patterns is essential for protecting your emotional and mental health. First sign, they always steer the conversation back to themselves. Have you noticed that when you try to share something important about your life, the conversation mysteriously shifts back to the narcissistic person? For example, imagine you start saying, "Today was a really tough day at work. My boss overloaded me with tasks." Before you can finish, they interrupt with something like, "Oh, that's nothing. You have no idea what a tough job is. At my job, I deal with impossible deadlines and unhelpful colleagues." Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about you, it's about their experiences, achievements, or struggles. This isn't just a lack of attention, it's a genuine inability to care about your experience, because for them, the focus must always be on themselves. This can leave you feeling like your emotions or experiences don't matter. Second sign, they use emotionally invalidating phrases. These are statements that, at first glance, might seem harmless, but have a devastating impact over time. You ever heard something like, "You're overreacting," "You're too sensitive," "You're misinterpreting everything," or even, "You're crazy"? These statements are strategically used to make you doubt your own emotions and perceptions. When someone repeatedly tells you that your reaction to a situation is exaggerated or wrong, you start questioning whether you can trust what you feel or think. This is a cornerstone of gaslighting, a tactic that erodes your confidence in yourself, making you feel like your emotions are invalid or that you're always wrong. Third sign, they have two different faces. One of the most confusing aspects of dealing with a narcissistic person is their behavioral duality. In public, they can be incredibly charming, funny, charismatic, or even generous. They might be the center of attention, winning everyone over with their charm. But when they're alone with you, the scene changes completely. They can become cold, distant, critical, or even cruel. This contrast is so stark that it might make you question yourself. If everyone thinks this person is so great, am I the problem? Am I imagining things? This confusion is exactly what they want you to feel because it keeps them in control. Fourth sign, they never take real responsibility. When you confront a narcissistic person about something they did wrong, it's rare for them to genuinely admit fault. Instead, any attempt at an apology comes with a condition or blame shifting. Have you ever heard something like, "Sorry, but you did this too. Sorry if you felt that way. But it wasn't my intention," or "Sorry, but you provoked me." These aren't sincere apologies. They're manipulations disguised as apologies. They shift the responsibility back to you, making you feel like you somehow caused the problem. This tactic keeps the narcissistic person free of blame while you carry the weight of the situation. Fifth sign, they use the silent treatment as punishment. If you've ever faced long periods of silence or indifference after disagreeing with or confronting a narcissistic person, this is known as the silent treatment. When you don't act the way they expect or challenge their actions, they might simply stop talking to you, completely ignore you, or act as if you don't exist. This silence isn't just a way to avoid confrontation. It's a calculated punishment, designed to make you feel guilty, anxious, or even desperate to regain their attention. You might find yourself compelled to apologize, even without knowing exactly what you did wrong, just to break the oppressive silence. Sixth sign, they make you feel like you're walking on eggshells. Living with a narcissistic person often means being in a constant state of alertness. You never know what their mood will be on a given day or what might trigger a negative reaction. Will a wrong word spark an argument? Will an innocent comment be taken as an offense? To avoid conflicts or emotional outbursts, you start modifying your behavior, carefully choosing your words, suppressing your opinions, or even hiding your feelings. This constant vigilance is exhausting and can make you feel like you're losing your authenticity, living only to please or appease the other person. Seventh sign, they use your vulnerabilities against you. When you share something personal, like an insecurity, fear, or struggle, a narcissistic person might initially seem understanding. However, they store this information as ammunition to use against you during conflicts. For example, if you mention struggling with anxiety, they might throw it back at you in an argument with phrases like, "Here you go with your anxiety." Again, always complicating everything, or "You can't handle anything because of your problem." This tactic is cruel because it turns your vulnerability, something you shared in confidence, into a weapon to discredit your feelings or arguments. What lies behind all these behaviors, as Dr. Ramani Durvasula explains, is a desperate need to maintain control and superiority. Despite their facade of confidence, people with narcissistic behavior have an extremely fragile ego. Any criticism, confrontation, or situation that threatens their self-image is intolerable to them. To protect this ego, they constantly need to put others down, whether through manipulation, invalidation, or blame. This cycle of control is designed to keep you trapped, doubting yourself and prioritizing their needs above your own. Recognizing these signs is the first step to understanding the dynamic you're in, starting to take steps to protect your emotional health. If you're beginning to recognize narcissistic behavior patterns in someone close to you, you're likely already feeling the profound emotional toll these interactions take. These consequences can be so intense that they affect not only your mental health, but also your physical energy and overall well-being. I want you to know that these reactions are completely normal when dealing with psychological manipulation. They're not a sign of weakness or something wrong with you. They're a natural response to a toxic and draining relational dynamic. First impact, constant guilt. One of the most common effects of being in a relationship with a narcissistic person is a persistent sense of guilt. You might find yourself constantly wondering, what did I do wrong this time? Why did they react that way? Or what could I have done to avoid this conflict? Even when the problem clearly wasn't your fault, the narcissistic person has an impressive ability to turn the situation around and make you feel responsible. For example, if they had a bad day, somehow the blame falls on you. If you had been more understanding, I wouldn't be so stressed. This blame shifting is a manipulative tactic that makes you carry the emotional weight of their problems while they remain blameless. Over time, this constant guilt can make you feel like you're never good enough, which is exactly what the narcissistic person wants, as it keeps them in control. Second, impact, mental confusion. Another devastating effect is the feeling that you can no longer trust your own perception of reality. Have you ever been absolutely certain that something happened a certain way, but the person insisted it was completely different? Maybe you clearly remember a conversation or a promise they made, but they vehemently deny it. I never said that, or you're making things up. This is gaslighting in action, a strategy Dr. Ramani Durvasula describes as one of the narcissist's most powerful tools. The goal is to make you doubt your memory, your senses, and even your sanity. This mental confusion is exhausting because you start questioning everything. Am I really wrong? Am I imagining things? Over time, this erodes your self-confidence, leaving you more vulnerable to the narcissistic person's control. Third impact, constant anxiety. Living with a narcissistic person often means being in a perpetual state of alertness, as if you're always waiting for the next outburst or criticism. You carefully plan every word you say, avoid certain topics you know might trigger a negative reaction, and try to anticipate their mood before any interaction. For example, you might think, is today a good day to bring this up? Or if I say this, will they get mad? This hypervigilance is incredibly taxing on your nervous system. The constant anxiety isn't just emotional, it can manifest physically, with symptoms like insomnia, headaches, chest tightness, or difficulty relaxing. This ongoing tension is a natural response to the unpredictable and emotionally unstable environment created by the narcissistic person. Fourth impact, low self-esteem. After months or years of being subjected to constant criticism, invalidation, and misplaced blame, it's almost inevitable that your self-esteem starts to crumble. The narcissistic person might make comments that undermine your confidence, like, "You never do anything right," or "No one else would put up with you." These words, repeated over time, can make you start believing there's something wrong with you. You might question your ability to make decisions, your intelligence, or even your worth as a person. This process is so gradual that you might not even realize how your confidence has been eroded until you find yourself doubting yourself in nearly every area of your life. Dr. Ramani explains that this destruction of self-esteem is intentional, because an insecure person is easier to manipulate and control. Fifth impact, social isolation. Another common effect is drifting away from friends, family, or other important people in your life. This can happen in several ways. Sometimes the narcissistic person directly encourages you to distance yourself. Perhaps by criticizing your friends, they're not good for you, or demanding more of your time and attention. Other times, the isolation is an unconscious choice on your part because you feel ashamed to share what you're going through. You might think, "No one will believe me. After all, they're so charming with others," or they'll think I'm overreacting because they seem so perfect to everyone else. This isolation is dangerous because it leaves you even more dependent on the narcissistic person, who often becomes your primary source of social interaction. even if that interaction is toxic. Sixth impact, emotional imbalance. Have you ever felt like you're always giving everything your energy, time, and patience to try to keep the narcissistic person happy, but you never get anything in return? You work hard to understand their needs, solve their problems, and be the perfect partner, friend, or family member. But when you need support, they're absent or minimize your problems with phrases like, "That's nothing. Look at what I'm going through." This dynamic of giving without receiving creates an emotional imbalance that leaves you exhausted. You feel like you're carrying not only the weight of your own emotions, but also the emotional burden of the narcissistic person, who rarely takes responsibility for their actions or feelings. Why do you feel this way? Dr. Ramani emphasizes that these impacts guilt, confusion, anxiety, low self-esteem, isolation, and exhaustion are not signs of weakness or that you're going crazy. On the contrary, they're normal reactions to an abnormal situation. Narcissistic manipulation is designed to keep you in a state of doubt and insecurity because it makes control easier. Gaslighting, for example, is a deliberate tactic to distort your perception of reality, making you question your sanity. The emotional exhaustion you feel is real and valid because you're dealing with a constant cycle of psychological manipulation. Understanding these impacts is the first step to recognizing that the problem lies not with you, but in the toxic dynamic created by the narcissistic person. Now that you understand what's happening, let's talk about what you can do to start protecting yourself and reclaiming your mental health. First step, validate your own experience. Stop questioning whether you're overreacting or being too sensitive. Your feelings are valid. If you feel bad after interacting with someone, that's an important signal you need to listen to. Trust your intuition. Second step, set clear boundaries. You don't have to accept someone's behavior just because they're going through a tough time or because you have a history together. You have the right to say, "I won't let you talk to me like that. I'm not discussing this now," or simply no. Third step, document the patterns. Start noting specific situations where you felt manipulated, confused, or bad. This will help you see the patterns more clearly and trust your own perception. When you see it all written down, it's harder to doubt yourself. Fourth step, rebuild your support network. Reconnect with friends and family you may have drifted away from. Seek out people who make you feel good about yourself, who listen without judgment, and who support you. You need healthy voices in your life to counterbalance the toxic voice you've been hearing. Fifth step, consider professional help. A psychologist or therapist can help you process what you've been through. Rebuild your self-esteem and develop strategies to handle the situation. There's no shame in seeking help. In fact, it's an act of courage and self-care. Sixth step, practice self-care. You've probably spent a lot of time focusing on the other person's needs and moods, neglecting your own. Return to doing things you enjoy, that relax you, that make you feel good. This isn't selfish, it's necessary for your recovery. Seventh step, educate yourself. The more you understand about narcissism and manipulation, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself. Read books, watch videos, seek out reliable information. Knowledge is power, and the more you know, the less vulnerable you'll be. It's important to understand that you cannot change a narcissistic person. You might try to explain how they're hurting you, but they'll likely use it against you or pretend to understand only to manipulate you later. Real change must come from them, and that rarely happens. What you can do is change how you respond to them. You can protect yourself, set boundaries, and decide how much energy you want to invest in the relationship. Remember, you are not responsible for their feelings, behaviors, or happiness. You're only responsible for yourself. Be patient with yourself in this process. Breaking free from a toxic relationship isn't easy, especially when it involves someone close, like a partner, family member, or friend. It may take time to process everything, rebuild your self-esteem, and establish new relationship patterns. You're not alone in this journey. Millions of people have gone through this and managed to recover. With time, the right support, and the right tools, you too can break free from this toxic cycle and build healthier, more genuine relationships. I hope this content has helped you better understand what you might be going through and, above all, given you hope that there is a way out. Recognizing that you're dealing with a narcissistic person is the first step to reclaiming your life and inner peace. If this content resonated with you, if you recognized any of the signs I mentioned, I'd ask you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, I share weekly content about toxic relationships, self-esteem, mental health, and personal development. My goal is to help you identify harmful patterns and build a healthier, more balanced life. Let me know in the comments. Have you experienced something like what I described today? Have you identified any of these patterns in your life? Or maybe you have a specific question about how to handle a situation you're facing? I read all the comments and respond personally whenever possible. If you have a friend, family member, or acquaintance who might be going through this, please share this content with them. Sometimes a person is so immersed in the situation that they can't see clearly what's happening. Your sharing might be exactly what they need to start breaking free. Remember, you deserve healthy, respectful, and genuine relationships. You deserve to be treated with dignity and care. You deserve to have your emotions validated and your voice heard. Don't accept anything less. Thank you so much for reading this far. I'll see you in the next post. Take care of yourself.